Finally, we're going to do a proper full review of the Tissot Seastar 1000. I'm going to give you guys all the things that I like about this watch and also a couple things that I'm still not a fan of with this particular watch. We're also going to take a quick peek at the Tissot Seastar 2000 and give you guys a quick comparison of the two. And then I'm going to give you guys some final thoughts on this watch. This is my second attempt at this watch because the first one that I had was indeed broken on arrival. So stay tuned and take a look at this Tissot Seastar 1000 on this episode of
Average Joe.
It's always time. You kind of want that. Hello everyone, welcome to Average Joe Watch Reviews, where we do more than just reviews. Today we're finally going to take a look at the full review of the Tissot Seastar 1000. There actually is a 2000 version, and that is going to cost you in the $1,000 price range. The difference between the two watches here is you're getting a case diameter here of 43 millimeters, as opposed to the Seastar 2000. You're getting a 46 case diameter. You're also getting a 2,000 foot water resistance. And also you're going to get the helium escape valve that is actually in the case itself. It actually pops out when needed. So there are your major differences. And also you cannot get gray in the 2000 as well. Now this watch here is going to cost you in the price range of right around $725 MSRP. Now, this is a gray sunburst dial, and as you can see, it is a really beautiful color. And you also get the color matching bezel as well, which is actually done in ceramic. The big difference between the last generation and this generation is the fact that the numbers are actually etched into the bezel itself. So in the last generation, you notice that the numbers were actually printed on the bezel, and in certain lights, the numbers would get lost on the bezel. Here, they did a really nice job of engraving the ceramic, and it does not get lost in the light at all. And you even have a little bit of a lighter gray contrasting the darker gray. So very easy to read indeed. The other thing I really like, which is an upgrade from the Tissot that I had last on the channel, which is again the last generation, was the bezel action. This one here actually has better bezel action than I expected. Let's take a listen. Very good play here. Very good action, very mechanical sound, and it's just very, actually, I can't get any back play. That's very, very impressive. See, no back play at all. The other Tissot that I had previous on the channel, and I'll put that picture up here. That particular version, I mean, even if I just went across here, it would have just turned. It was way too easy to turn. This one actually does take some effort. So really, really nice job from Tissot here on that. Now, you do get a little bit of a storybook in regards to, you know, the printing, which I actually don't mind. I think it's well balanced. You do get Seastar, Powermatic 80, 30 bar, and 300 meters of water resistance, which is 1,000 feet of water resistance, okay? And then right underneath that, you get the date wheel. And that's where our first problem begins, because if you notice, you can see peaking is the next date, which is the 12. So you see a little bit of the 1 peeking out there. And as you can see, we do have a hacking movement, by the way. But as we get to the next day, you'll see that was the 1 right there, and then boom, clicks to 12, and then that 1 is going to be peeking through for the 13. So it's a problem with all the Seastars that I know of in regard to that date function. I don't know why they haven't figured that out, but it's definitely an issue nevertheless. So we do get a hacking movement. As you can see, we click it back in, it starts ticking again. You notice that it's not the smooth tick that we're used to with a 28,800 beats per hour movement. This one is actually beating at 21,600 beats per hour. And that's because it is housing the Powermatic 80 movement, which is one of Tissot's pretty popular movements in their watches. And the reason why it's called the Powermatic 80 is because of its 80-hour power reserve. And the way they are able to achieve that, so you take a traditional spring, right, which is thicker and shorter. What Tissot is able to do is they're able to actually thin out a traditional spring, and this one's actually made of a silicon, which is anti-magnetic, and they actually make it longer to be able to fit in the same space, so that you're essentially getting pretty much double the amount of coiling within the space, and therefore you can get double the amount of power reserve. The other way that they can achieve that feat is by slowing the movement down just a little bit to 21,600, and that's why you're seeing almost a mecha quartz type movement going on here with the second hand. So they call this like the weekender type movement because you could put this watch down on your dresser on a Friday, and by Monday morning, this watch will still be ticking. You take another traditional watch that has a 48-hour power reserve, 40-hour, 42, 38, whatever the case might be, it will not last through the weekend. So an 80-hour power reserve is definitely something to have, especially if you're a professional that likes to wear your watches. This one definitely fits the bill. So when we take a look at some more details of the watch itself, you do notice that we do have raised indices, and they are outlined in a polished stainless steel. They are applied, and you can see that there is some depth to that. And you can also see that chapter ring as well. That is also a different part of the dial itself, which is a sunburst pattern. Now we do get luminescence, and I'll give you guys a lume shot here. And as you can see, you've got the T counterbalance with the fence post, hour, and minute hands. When we take a side view of the watch, you can see these cutouts, which is very interesting. So you've got the brushing and you've got polishing on the indents. And you also see that as well on the side here. So no change from that previous generation. And you will get actually there is no chamfered edge. I'm sorry, I was actually going to say you get a chamfered edge. No chamfered edge here, but you do get polishing. And you get brushing on the side. The brushing is actually done vertically as opposed to horizontally. We take a look at how this will sit on the wrist, and you can see that the end links are not going to protrude too much. It will fit pretty true to the lugs. As I said before, this watch is a 43 millimeter in case diameter, and we're going to take a look at its thickness. We're coming in at a 13 millimeters, so not too bad at all there. And our lug to lug width here is indeed right around 49 millimeters, okay? So almost a 50 millimeter lug to lug. I'm gonna show it to you guys on my 7-inch wrist here. And as you can see, it actually fits very, very well. I have absolutely no issue with the size. 43 is kind of big for some fellas out there, but for me, that's actually a sweet spot. Now, the one dimension that I do not like about this particular watch is the lug width. Our lug width is a 21 millimeters. Now, I do usually wear this on a rubber strap. This one here is from Straps Co. This one actually matches it very well, and I'll show you guys some rolling shots of that. I really do love that combination. And also, I have had it on the beads of rice, and I'll show you that combination as well. Now, the good thing about this particular bracelet is the fact that it does come with a quick change system. It's easy to take it off. It's a little bit more challenging to put it on. Now, you do get a milled clasp, and you do get a diver extension, which is the cheaper kind of, this is the cost cutting right here. But the milled clasp is an upgrade from the previous generation. You do get that exhibition case back, which houses that beautiful Powermatic 80 movement. Now, to go back to the 21 millimeter size, the reason why I'm not a fan of that is because it's very hard to find straps for 21 millimeter watches, since a lot of watch strap companies will go, 18, 20, 22, 24. They like to do those even numbers. So the odd man out is with these straps at 21 millimeters. I'm going to flip the camera around and give you guys some final thoughts on this watch. But before I do so, let's put on the time graph and show you how this one's running. Because some of you guys who are subscribers to the channel know that this is actually my second of the same watch, because the first one I received, well, that one just went absolutely haywire and there was something wrong with it. We took it back and we got a brand new one. Let's see how this one runs on the time graph. All right, just some final thoughts on the Tissot Seastar 1000. For the price, I think you're getting a lot of watch for very little money, especially for a Swiss-made watch that looks well over its price range. I mean, this watch here is a beaut, and it makes a statement. 43 millimeters might be a little bit big for some wrist sizes, so you definitely want to be careful with that, but we are getting right around a 49 millimeter lug to lug, and also the fact that the bracelet does drape down pretty well, I think can fit wrists 6 3/4 on up without an issue, but that's up to you guys there. So some of the positives, I do love the etching in the ceramic bezel, that they etched in the numbers as opposed to having the refraction of the light of the previous generation. I had the previous generation, and the numbers on the bezel would get lost in certain lights. I also love the gray of this watch. It really is sharp, very handsome. It's a very unique look that you don't really see on divers, this particular gray, and you've got the gray on gray. It's just a really, really awesome look. Another positive thing about this particular watch is indeed the bezel action, much improved over previous generation. And for the price range, it's a very good bezel, and there's actually very minute back play indeed. Love that. Now, we've got the Powermatic 80, which you're getting the 80-hour power reserve. Huge plus. C3 Luminova is actually laid on thicker in this generation, so much improved over the previous generation. There's a lot of different things. The bracelet itself improved. Well, actually, I like the bracelet on the previous generation, but this one here comes with the milled clasp. Does come with the cheap diver extension, which is a negative, which we'll dive into here. The negatives. I'm not a huge fan of the polished center links. They do scuff up pretty easily. The 21 millimeter lug width, not a fan of, because it's hard to find straps for. Now, they did give you a quick change system here, which is a positive. But again, back to the negatives. The date window is still misaligned. You still see the next number just slightly. But guys, for under $1,000, a Swiss-made watch that built this nicely. And quite frankly, my wife saw a Rolex Submariner on my wrist the other day, and she said that this watch here is so much sharper. And I have to admit, when you're looking at a $10,000 watch versus a $725 watch, I have to say that this watch, despite its price, did look very sharp and it held its own. I mean, there's no comparison, but it's a very sharp watch on your wrist and it does make a presence. 43 millimeters might be a little bit of a negative for you guys, but the fact that the bracelet does drape down pretty nicely and you're getting right around a 49 millimeter lug tip to lug tip, can fit a lot of wrist, at least starting to me at 7 inches, which is my wrist here. So I don't know. What do you guys think down below? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. That's my 2 cents. You can keep the change, and always remember that there's always time to be kind to one another. Please take care of each other, and I'll see you guys next time on Average Joe Watch Reviews. God bless, my friends.